5 life-changing lessons that my mentors taught me that you won't believe. You know, one of my first mentors, this guy named Ken Nickerson, and just an amazing human being. And I remember I was deciding, should I move to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley, to the home of the technology people, the place that eventually made me a multimillionaire. And in that fear, I almost didn't make the decision. But the advice he gave me, which is beautiful, which led me to discovering my other mentors that changed everything for me. The advice was simple. Get around the smartest people that you meet. So as soon as you meet somebody, without being creepy, try to spend time with them. And it sounds crazy, but literally, when I went down to the Valley, I ended up getting a desk in this co-working space and meeting some really cool entrepreneurs. I would offer to help out the marketing, with the PR, whatever you need, recruiting engineers. It was just what I did. But I share that with you because mentors have the ability to fundamentally shift your perspective, your paradigm. So I want to share with you what my 5 technology mentors taught me and how it's impacted my life. My first mentor is a guy named Naval Ravikant. You might have seen him on Joe Rogan. He's written books. I mean, he's a prolific tweeter. And he shared with me these things called the 4 master skills. Now, those are my words. I call them the 4 master skills because when I think of time, and a lot of people know me as the author of Buy Back Your Time, Naval set the foundation to really think about how do you scale, but do it in the fastest way possible by looking for leverage. And he calls them the 4 C's of leverage, okay? And the concept is if time is a constant and we want to increase our output, then we have to focus on these 4 master skills to become world-class entrepreneurs. The first one is code. Think about software, automation. Today would be AI. Incredibly powerful. That concept of just, and for me as a technologist, just being better at software and understanding the capabilities and the APIs it's called, changed the game for me. The second one was capital. Understanding how do you leverage other people's money, OPM, a powerful thing, to fund your dreams, to create more. It takes money sometimes to make more money. So understanding how to raise venture capital. And AngelList is what a lot of people know Naval for, angel.co. I was one of the first Canadian angel investors to use that platform. It's why I was named one of the top angel investors in Canada, is because of the deal flow that came from that network. So not only did I understand how capital was used for leverage, but I also got access to people, which is a powerful concept. The third C is content. Think Joe Rogan, think Oprah, think pretty much any person, including yours truly, that you're aware of. It's because they've produced content. But the cool part is that if you watch this or a bazillion people watch it, it takes 0 extra of my time. Isn't that a cool concept? I can have 1 million people read my book or only 10 people read it, but it doesn't take anything more. It's like a standard operating procedure in your business. That is a concept of content, a podcast, a training video. And to understand how to create content, tell stories, communicate change, transformation, whatever it is, content is a huge form of leverage. And then the 4th C is collaboration. It's people. It's understanding how do I hire people to buy back my time, to get more leverage, to reinvest it in things that obviously light me up, that make our company more money. That lesson, not only did I learn from Naval and allowed me to build 2 venture-backed companies that I've exited, it also became the basis and the foundation for the book that's made me a Wall Street Journal bestseller, Buy Back Your Time. So I mean, to say he had a little impact on my life would be an understatement. He's had an incredible, even from afar, watching how he thinks, how he executed, listening to him negotiate, talk with other entrepreneurs. It's been incredibly invaluable, and that's why I think mentors are fundamental to any entrepreneur's growth. Number 2 is Dharmesh Shah. Now, Dharmesh is the CTO and co-founder of HubSpot. You may have heard the product. They're a publicly traded company, multi-billion-dollar company. I think Dharmesh today is a billionaire. But I met him probably in 2010, about 13 years ago in Toronto. We were both speaking at this event. And you can just tell once you meet Dharmesh, his brain thinks completely different. He's just such what I call a blue flame thinker. He's very thoughtful, he slows down, and when he speaks, it's intentional. Every word matters. He doesn't just give you an off-the-cuff answer. He's actually thought through it, debated the different options, and give them to you. And one day he came to our office in San Francisco when I was building my company Flowtown, and he was talking to us about strategy, right? And I had the privilege of spending time with him at different events, and he talked to me about how he thought about the future of marketing and the product side. But for me, it was this one conversation where we're talking about their strategy to get to the next level of growth at HubSpot. This was before they were ever public. And they had just bought this company and they were making a bet. And the bet required them to take a pause to essentially build new features, new innovation. The whole idea or the concept, I would say, my words, not his, was we had to slow down to go fast. Because it doesn't matter if you can build a marketing and sales engine, if the product doesn't deliver on the promise that your marketing team is making to the customer, then you'll just have a high churn. And he knew this. And I'll tell you, the amount of courage I thought at the time for them to decide to slow down when they were growing like at a crazy clip, to say, no, we have to get the product right. We need to re-engineer it, redesign it so that we can deliver not only our current customers' needs, but on the future where they saw this was going and they didn't have the product at that point. And it was an 18-month pause, give or take a couple months, to essentially rewrite, redesign, replatform the whole thing to allow them to continue to march. That lesson has showed up in my life so many times, because if there's problems with the business, it's product. If there's challenges with how the customer's responding, it's a product thing. It's sure, marketing and sales are involved, but at the end of the day, once the customer comes into your world, agency or software or services, it doesn't really matter. You have to ask yourself, how does the customer feel about your company and how do they perceive the value they're receiving? And if you're falling short, you're never gonna work your way out of that. And Dharmesh taught me that at the highest level. Number 3 is Mark Cuban. See, you might know him as the shark on Shark Tank, but I know him as the investor in my company, Clarity. And what's bananas is, I'd known Mark for a long time. I knew of him. I'm not gonna misplace, we're not buddies or anything. When I was 17, I cold emailed him and he replied. Okay, so I've been a fan of his ethos and his business strategies and just the way he shows up as a person. He's willing to be out there and bold and bet on himself, which I absolutely love. Well, when we were building Clarity, we were raising a round of funding and we'd launch on AngelList, Naval's company, and somehow Mark signed up for the product, okay? And I found out later what happened, but essentially as soon as he signed up, somebody on my team's like, hey, I think Mark Cuban just signed up for a product. I was like, what? And I checked the account and looked to see if is it like somebody impersonating him, but you had to connect your Facebook account. We checked it out and it was literally his account. So I emailed him, hey Mark, saw you sign up for a product, curious what you think. And that kicked off an email exchange, okay? 13 emails later, Mark says, I'm in. He CCs his lawyer and he writes a check for about $250,000. Now, here's what I've learned, because Mark was an investor and I got to interact with him through email, is he's designed his life where he understands the most valuable asset he has is his time. And he refuses. I literally cannot see many circumstances where I don't think he's ever sat on a board, maybe of his own companies where he owns 100%, but he's literally the first person to always respond back. Every email is sent out to investor updates, boom, he always replied back. And that taught me the idea of velocity, right? Communication velocity. Oftentimes, as a CEO, our job is just routing to the right people. And too many people that create bottlenecks in their business, the reason why it's called a bottleneck is because it's at the top. Who's at the top? You're at the top. You're the bottleneck. So Mark's very good at saying, I literally, when we went to announce the deal a year later, okay, and Mark had been on the investor updates, I was like, hey Mark, is it okay? I emailed, is it okay if I add you to the press release and use your name? And his reply was like, as long as the deal closed, then yeah, for sure. As in he didn't even really remember if the lawyer finalized the paperwork to get his involvement. That's how many deals he does. But again, he's routing the communication. He's increasing his velocity. That principle in my world, and you'll also read about it in this great book called The $1 Billion Coach, right? Where Eric Schmidt talks about, as a CEO, my job is to route. It's not to be the bottleneck. It's not to say, hey, let's get on a call. It's not to say, send me that information. It's talk to my team. And that lesson from Mark Cuban is one of the most powerful that I've seen him execute flawlessly, and continues just the amount of stuff he does, but he knows where he adds value and where he doesn't. He pulls people in to get things moving forward, and it's beautiful. Number 4 is Richard Branson. And this one is something that it took me years to truly understand the significance of what he said. About 8 years ago, I got invited. I don't even know how I got on the invite list, but I got to spend a week at his house in Switzerland. And I mean, we're talking the who's who at the time. We had Tim Ferriss, Brian Johnson. You guys all know him as like the biohacker guy where he's trying to live, I don't know, he's trying to live to 100 but look like he's 20, right? He just sold his company Braintree. I think he was my roommate on this trip, right? Because they had like these 2 beds in these rooms. And we got to spend a week with Richard Branson watching how he operated and interacted with his staff. And he is the billionaire other billionaires want to be like, okay? And it turns out that his life is that cool. Like literally he wakes up every day and it's like, I want to go skiing. I want to go work on this crazy idea to send things into space, whatever he wants. And what I learned, because I got to have dinner with him and lunch and hang out on the ski hill, I remember asking him once, I said, what's the one thing? You know, Rich, I know a lot of people ask like, what's the one thing? But for you, like if you had to think about business, what's the one thing you would focus on? And he didn't even skip a beat and he immediately answered and he said, brand. He said, brand. It's the most valuable thing. Your brand precedes you. Your brand is something that you create value. Now I'm filling in the blanks because he didn't share this stuff. I want you to understand why it's so valuable. Your brand, your business's brand, is a valuable asset. There's a reason why, you may not know this, Donald Trump gets paid tens of millions of dollars every year to put his name on buildings. You see his name on a lot of these high rises in different cities. Those are licensing deals. He gets paid tens of millions of dollars per year to put his logo on the top of these buildings. Why? Because his brand stands for luxury. It stands for opulence. It stands for, the most valuable, like the best, right? Whatever you think of his brand, it doesn't matter. Virgin, same thing. And all of the Virgin group of companies, the most of them are licensing deals of the brand. See, Richard, I don't know if he got lucky or it was just always in his DNA and he understood this, but he just kept building. A lot of the PR stunts is to create the brand. So I want to ask you, what does your brand stand for? The brand of you. Because that's why people are like, why do you put out all this content? Why are you doing social media? Why are you investing with videographers and stuff? At the end of the day, it is way easier for me to do anything in this world if I have something that's out there ahead of me. If I have an opportunity for people to go to my LinkedIn, to go to my Twitter, to go to my Instagram, to see it. That happened this morning. Some guy's like, oh, you're on Instagram? What's your handle? I gave it to him. He's like, holy crap, you have a lot of followers. Instantly, I knew what that created. Credibility, trust, intrigue. What do you do? How did you do that? Why would people follow you? That's your opportunity. But it's true for your business. It's true for the way you show up. And that was what I learned from Richard Branson. I underestimated, I didn't really get it to the degree that I do today for literally the last 8 years. And now everybody talks about it. From Alex Hormozy to Gary Vaynerchuk to you name it, they understand the power of a brand is one of the most valuable assets that you can create that will unlock every other dream, goals, and desires. Number 5 is Victor Martell, my dad, and the advice he gave me, I absolutely ignored it, didn't really trust it. I mean, maybe it's because it was my dad, but it seemed kind of like obvious, but I didn't get this component, which was you have to find the thing you're passionate about, right? And growing up, if you don't know my story, I got in a little bit of trouble, okay? With the law, doing bad things, making bad decisions. And for a long time in my teenage years, my dad used to just beg. He's like, if you could just find something you're passionate about that's not illegal, I think you'd do okay with your life. Turned out he was kind of right in a major way. You know, when I look around at the life I live today, knowing where we came from, it's kind of magical. Like it kind of makes me have to stop and really think like, why me and what happened? And what my dad taught me, and I didn't realize this, by being a kid in the car while he was on these old like car phones. You should see it. It was like a brick. It was plugged in, hard plugged in, like cables to the battery of the car, not in the lighter. I'm talking like you brought it to the car dealership and they built it into the car. And he would do deals and he would talk with customers. And I watched at the time, not understanding what I was learning, how to be passionate about your work. My dad would like do a deal and then hang up and then be like, okay, here's what I did. You know, this guy needed this and this guy had this and I put this together and I told him this and then now we've got this deal and he's gonna get what he needs, he's gonna get what he needs. We got what we need, we hit our numbers for the quarter. I was like, wow, I kind of don't understand it. But again, it didn't matter. I got my MBA watching my dad be passionate about his work. To this day, the Martel language, we don't watch sports. We're crazy. I'm Canadian. I don't watch hockey. I don't watch football. I probably lost half of you guys right now. I don't watch those things because our sport has always been business. And the reason why is because for me, that I'm an Olympic athlete in that game. That's the game that I talk with my dad on. It's the game that me and my brothers talk about. It's just our passion. And man, and Steve Jobs said it best, the reason why you want to be passionate is not because, it's easier and it pushes you forward. It's because when things get so hard and every other person out there, any rational person would easily give up, you decide not. You decide to give forward. You decide to keep going. You decide to execute. You decide to be the person. And every other person is looking at you like you're crazy. But it's the crazy ones that create the future. Because it's creating opportunities from nothing. If there was an obvious opportunity, then most people would have already done it. But if you've got the desire and the vision to create something, the passion was required. And my dad, Victor Martell, taught me that, showed me that, and supported me as I built my companies in my life. And it was one of the biggest gifts he could ever give me. Now, those are only 5 mentors that shaped my life and introduced me to new concepts, or just by their behavior impacted the way that I wanted to operate, the man I wanted to become. But there's hundreds of others. I am built by community. I'm built by conversations. I'm built by being around the right people in the right rooms. Now, here's my question for you. Are you going to upgrade the rooms that you're spending time in? Are you going to look for another level mentor who's going to challenge your beliefs and your view around how the world is so that you can do more? Are you going to stop being the smartest person on your street and go find a new street? Because I know some of you guys know in your heart that you can do more, but you're playing smaller, you're playing safe, because as soon as you put 100% of yourself out there and you fail, that really hurts. And what I want to tell you is that the right mentor, my mentors in my life today, refuse to allow me to play small. They refuse to allow me to use small language. They refuse to allow me to set goals and have dreams that aren't at the world game-changing level. And I appreciate for them. It's scary, but man, I'm grateful for them. So I want to challenge you not only to build a bigger business and a bigger life, but go find the next room. Go find the next street. Go find the next city that you're going to find your mentors in that's going to propel your life forward. With that, I'll see you next Monday.